amidst the high-level diplomatic maneuvering aimed at ending the war in Ukraine. A parallel and significant effort is underway in the United States Congress to dramatically escalate pressure on Moscow. Senator Lindsey Graham, a prominent Republican from South Carolina, has forcefully renewed his call to designate the Russian Federation as a state sponsor of terrorism. This push, which has bipartisan support, is primarily centered on Russia's alleged abduction and forced transfer of thousands of Ukrainian children. Graham has made it clear that he views the return of these children as a non-negotiable component of any potential peace agreement and is prepared to use the powerful tool of a terror state designation to compel their release. Russia has kidnapped thousands of Ukrainian children, taken from Ukrainian families and sent to Russia. Graham stated in a recent television appearance, "If they do not return these children to Ukraine, then I'm going to push legislation to make Russia a state sponsor of terrorism under U.S. law." He further emphasized that any peace deal that does not include the return of the children would not be a just end to the war, adding that the designation would make Russia radioactive. This stark language underscored the gravity with which Graham and his allies view the issue, framing it not just as a violation of international law, but as an act of state-sponsored terror. The campaign to label Russia a terror state is not a new development. Senator Graham, along with Democratic Senator Richard Blumenthal of Connecticut, first introduced a bill to this effect during the previous year. Under the prior administration, they have continued to advocate for this measure, arguing that Russia's action in Ukraine and its disruptive behavior globally warrant its inclusion in the small club of nations currently on the list: Cuba, Iran, North Korea, and Syria. The renewed push for this legislation comes as President Trump's administration is actively engaged in peace talk, creating a complex dynamic between the executive and legislative branches. While the White House is pursuing a diplomatic track, a powerful faction in Congress is advocating for a more punitive approach. The proposed legislation being championed by Graham and Blumenthal would not be merely symbolic. A state sponsor of terrorism designation carries with it a raft of severe sanctions and restrictions. It would trigger a ban on U.S. foreign assistance, prohibit defense export and sales, and impose stringent controls on the export of dual-use items that could have military applications. Furthermore, it would drastically curtail Russia's sovereign immunity in U.S. courts, opening the door for American victims of Russia's alleged state-sponsored terrorism to sue for damage in civil court. The bill specifically gives Russia a 60 days window to demonstrate that the displaced Ukrainian children have been reunited with their families or guardians in a secure environment. Failure to comply would direct Secretary of State Marco Rubio to officially designate both Russia and its ally Belarus, which has been implicated in supporting the relocation of the children, a state sponsor of terrorism. This legislative pressure is intended to provide the Trump administration with additional leverage in its negotiations with Moscow. Graham and his supporters argue that the threat of such a designation could be a powerful tool to force concessions from Russian President Vladimir Putin. The way to end this war is to make Russia believe that if they don't end it, we're going to destroy their fossil fuel economy, Graham said, linking the terror designation to broader economic pressure. The issue of the abducted Ukrainian children is at the heart of this legislative push. Ukrainian officials and human rights organizations estimated that tens of thousands of children have been forcibly taken from occupied territories since the start of the full-scale invasion. The organization Save Ukraine reports that thousands upon thousands of children have been taken, while some Ukrainian officials place the numbers even higher. These actions are viewed not as a random consequence of war, but as a systematic and deliberate policy of Russification aimed at erasing the Ukrainian identity of these children. The gravity of this situation has been acknowledged at the highest level. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has repeatedly stated that any peace agreement must include the return of all abducted children. He discussed the matter with President Trump during a previous meeting, and First Lady Melania Trump also penned a letter to President Putin urging the children's return, which was delivered during the recent Alaska summit. The international community has also voiced its concern, with leaders of several Baltic countries issuing a joint statement demanding the children's immediate return. The legal and diplomatic implications of designating a nuclear-armed permanent member of the United Nations Security Council as a state sponsor of terrorism are profound and complex. The Trump administration has thus far been cautious. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, when asked about the proposal, acknowledged that such designations can be useful, but expressed skepticism that it would alter the course of the war in these specific instances. This reflects a broader debate within foreign policy circles about the efficacy and potential unintended consequences of such a move. Proponents argue that it is a long overdue step to hold Russia accountable for what they describe as a barbaric behavior, including not only the situation in Ukraine, but also a history of actions such as the poisoning of political opponents and the downing of a Malaysian passenger jet. They believe the designation would provide a significant morale boost to Ukraine and further isolate Russia on the world stage. However, there are also significant counter-arguments and potential risks to consider. Some analysts worry that the designation could have a chilling effect on financial institutions, which might shy away from even permissible transactions with Russia, potentially disrupting critical supply chains, including food export. This was a concern raised by the previous administration as well. There is also the risk that such a designation could close off diplomatic channels, making future negotiations more difficult. By labeling Russia a terror state, the U.S. would be making a powerful statement that could preclude any form of normal engagement, a move that could have unpredictable geopolitical consequences. Furthermore, stripping Russia of its sovereign immunity could lead to a wave of lawsuits from U.S. citizens against frozen Russian assets. While this would provide a measure of justice for some victims, it could also deplete the very funds that might otherwise be used for the reconstruction of Ukraine or as leverage in a final peace settlement. Despite these concerns, the bipartisan pressure from Congress continues to build. The recent defense pact signed between Russia and North Korea has only added fuel to the fire, with Senator Blumenthal calling them two of the most autocratic, atrocity-committing leaders in the world standing together. For Graham, the calculus is clear. The moral imperative to secure the return of the Ukrainian children and to hold Russia accountable for its action outweigh the potential diplomatic and economic risk. The coming weeks will be crucial in determining whether this legislative efforts gains further traction and how the Trump administration chooses to navigate the delicate balance between diplomacy and punitive action in its quest to end the war in Ukraine. The push to declare Russia a terror state adds another layer of complexity to an already fraught geopolitical landscape, highlighting the deep division and strong emotions surrounding conflict. Many of my listeners, like 70%, haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel, and so many of you don't even know that you haven't subscribed. And that is actually what makes the show going. It's almost like you're making a donation to the show. So that's why I ask again and again, because it enables us to grow and grow and grow. We're going for the long haul here. And listen, if this is your first time listening to World Global Conflict, you don't have to subscribe. You guys, your first one's on me. But if you have watched this show before, it's like you are a freeloader now. So all I would ask you is, if you have seen this show before and you like it, help me, help my team here. Hit that subscribe and like button now, and we will continue to build a show for you. That I swear. Thank you to all of you guys who have subscribed. It means a lot to me. Thank you so much. That's all for me for today. I will see you soon. Bye for now.